Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a minute. Took us a little while to find the stories we wanted to talk about this week, but we found some, so we will have a show.
My brain is really going slow right now.
Your brain? Have you tried deleting some processes?
Yeah, I really should.
Open up Taskman.
I wish I really could. All right, turn volume off. Bring resolution down.
I should pull up the Windows blog so I know what I'm talking about.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Tapping the mic.
Oh yeah, I should do a test as well. Oh dear. Oh, voice recorder needs to install.
Oh, because yeah.
Nice. Oh boy, it's gonna be a minute. Thank goodness it's only 13 megabytes.
Our Telegram convo is getting a little spicy.
Testing 1 2. I've not even looked at it today. Testing 1 2. I've not even looked at it today.
I'm sending out the tweet.
Yep, I am ready to go when you are.
2 more seconds. Switch this account. All right, sending out my tweet. All right, minimizing that. Let me get to the notes. All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 259 for February 18th, 2002. My brain is off today.
2002?
Did I say 2000? All right, let me do that again. I'm telling you, my brain is just not right. All right. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 259 for February 18th, 2022. I cannot say February. That's not I don't like that word. It's not a very Dan-friendly word. But anyway, I'm Daniel Rubino, executive editor, Windows Central, joined by Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. For some reason, my brain-mouth connection today is off, so if I mumble a lot, I don't know. Maybe I suffered some brain damage while I was sleeping last night. Quite possible. But we have a pretty packed podcast for you this week. We'll be talking about new Windows 11 features, which we hinted at last week and are now actually shipping in the Insider Dev preview, as well as, Windows 11 itself, for those on the production ring, got a nice update this week with some new features there, which leads us to Android apps on Windows 11, which is now available to all users with Windows 11 in the United States. We also have an Amazon account. So we'll talk a little bit about that, whether it's good or not. Surface Laptop 5 rumors. So an alleged spec sheet for Microsoft's next laptop came out, and we haven't been able to verify it, but it's all within the realm of possibility here. We'll also talk about, and my voice is going again. We'll talk about your phone updates, which happened as well, and Edge surpassing Safari. So this has to do with stat counter, and it looks like Microsoft Edge is finally going to pass Apple Safari on desktop. This isn't counting, of course, on iOS, which has an unfair advantage. Obviously, even Edge on iOS is technically Safari. So, but still, this is kind of a big milestone. We'll talk about that. And one of our news writers, John Endicott, wrote an interesting editorial talking about his desire for dual boot phones, which I think we've talked about quite a few times on this podcast. But he actually had an interesting take on it versus the traditional one. So we'll go through that and the what the possibility of that could actually be in the future. And if we have time, we'll do the thing of the week, which probably won't be Marvel or Star Wars related, although I don't know what Zach has planned, so maybe that's his as well. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. So I'm going to say, I think the question is, how are you doing? Because you seem to be falling apart today.
I don't know why. Like, I feel fine. I am taking a sleep medicine, but it's over the counter. But it's not. But it's not the like. I forgot what the name is. It's not the stuff that actually like knocks you out. This is all like herbal.
Yeah.
And has like melatonin in it, so it's actually the less effective stuff. But it's actually been working very well because they make it now in liquid form. But it has to be something with that where either it's just too much or I slept too much. I don't know. It sometimes happens. We'll see. I did take a little bit of stimulants before the podcast, so pray that they'll kick in and my brain will get going. I'm one of those people, I'm telling you, like, I don't function in the AM. I exist in the AM. I don't function. You want to see peak Dan? 8 p.m.
Yeah.
and later. That's my peak moments. This is not it. Still early for me. But anyway, let's I guess jump into the news here. We got a lot to go through. So Windows 11 had a big week. Some of it was actually unexpected. Why don't you go through the news with us? Tell us both the production and then also, of course, the insider builds and what's happening now.
So we'll start with production. So this week, Microsoft began rolling out its first big sort of feature drop for Windows 11. They announced last month, I believe it was last month, or a few weeks ago at least, that they were planning to, in February, roll out new features to the taskbar, including things like the weather widget in the far left of the taskbar, the ability to share a window directly to Teams when you're in a Teams call, the ability to mute and unmute your mic directly from the system tray when you're in a Teams call, and they're also rolling out. They also said they're going to roll out new updates to Notepad and Media Player. And they also said they're going to make available Android apps on the production build of Windows 11. All of that happened this week. On Tuesday, I think it was, that all started to roll out to the production ring, which means everybody who's running Windows 11 can now download that and take advantage of those new features, which is pretty cool. The Android app stuff, which we'll talk a bit about later, is US only, which is kind of annoying. Microsoft does still sort of brand it as preview because of that. I don't know why it's US only. I think it's because it's on the Amazon side. The Amazon App Store itself is US only for now.
I didn't know that, but I would say that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah,
at the Amazon store,
because
and I'm sure it also comes down to licensing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's loads of reasons for it. Because the actual sideloading of APKs can be done in any region as long as you've installed the Windows subsystem for Android. It's just the actual App Store front is US only, unfortunately. So yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that later in the show. But yeah, everything else is now rolling out. The new apps, as I mentioned, are just the ones that have been in the dev channel for a while. So the WinUI updates to Notepad, which brings dark mode and stuff, which is nice to see. Media Player is an update to Groove Music, which just makes it so it can now play videos as well and is less focused on the branding aspect, because it doesn't make sense to brand a music player if it doesn't have a service with it. So Groove Music is now replaced with Media Player, and that works as you would expect. The taskbar improvements are nice. Unfortunately, drag and drop is not here. That is now in the dev channel. We'll talk about that in a second. But everything else, the weather button, the mute unmute, and the sharing directly from the taskbar is now in the shipping build of Windows 11 as well. So that's cool to see. Again, none of this is really groundbreaking. If you've been in the dev channel for the last few months, you've already seen all of this stuff come through there. So that isn't really new stuff to you guys. What is new, and to be fair, we've kind of expected this for a while. I think Microsoft has hinted at it here and there. Microsoft has confirmed that it will be rolling out more feature drops throughout the year. So no longer are features tied to the next major OS release. Microsoft says, hey, just like what we've done this week with the new taskbar stuff and with the widgets and whatnot, we will do that again in the next few months with more features as well. So some of the stuff we're about to talk about in the dev channel build will likely roll out to the shipping build of Windows 11 before version 22H2 is done or made available later this fall. And that's really good. New features will be coming at a sort of constant pace, which will anger some people. I know a lot of people are celebrating that Microsoft went back to one major feature update a year with Windows 11, but that really doesn't mean anything now. That features can just show up whenever Microsoft deems them ready. They can be in the dev channel for 4 weeks. If they get enough feedback and the feature is stable, they can promote that to the beta ring and then promote that to the production ring without having to wait for the next major version of Windows. And that's where all these experience packs comes in. Microsoft has sort of re-engineered the OS so that they can deliver these features and stuff on top of the OS rather than with a full new release, which is how things were done in the past. So that's pretty cool.
So I'm curious now, what are we going to get in the fall update, right?
Yeah.
Like, I suppose there could be some bigger non-time constrained features, maybe UI changes that could be happening in the fall, but like, I'm curious what their prioritization for this. For instance, they reworked the widgets, and so they gave us the weather icon, which is the only thing I care about. And it hasn't showed up on my Pro X for some reason, although I used it last night. And I don't know,
do updates through the store? I think it needs an update through the store as well.
I tried updating everything. I don't know. It just wasn't. It didn't shift my widget icon over. So I don't know what's going on there. But like, like, that's a cool feature. It's actually the only one I care about. But I know I'm very superficial. But had they said like, we're going to hold that to the fall, like, I don't know if that would have been a make or break issue. I think it's cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's great that they're doing this. I prefer this like drop system, which is becoming popular, everything in pop culture, right? And whether it's like limited edition shoes, watches, or gear. And even Google does this with the Pixel, right? So I actually feel like this model is actually kind of cooler. It's more modern. It's what people expect. But then it really, like, I mean, are they really going to keep that annual update and what's going to be in that? I don't know.
I assume the annual update, I assume there will be features to sort of headline the annual updates as well, but I think those are more going to start focusing on platform enhancements, under the hood improvements, because Microsoft still needs, the full build upgrades to change the core of the OS. Essentially, they can't sort of update that on the fly. Well, I guess they can through cumulative updates, but major changes to the platform would make sense to sort of be delivered as a new build, as a new major release. So I assume that's what's sort of going to become the annual releases. Like I said, I'm sure there will still be features in those that headline those updates, because it's hard to sell a new release just under the hood improvements. Hey, we refactored the entire OS. Good job, guys. It's like, yeah, no one cares.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure they'll hold back some stuff. Some of it will be because it won't be ready until that time anyway, so they might as well ship it alongside that. Others will be, we need something to spice up this release. Let's keep this thing back and keep it as part of that. But other things like, smaller stuff, I think it makes sense to roll out early. If it's ready, why not, right? What are we waiting for at that point? The weather button has been ready for ages, I feel like. It's been in the dev channel for a while. That's the thing that I think should have been in the RTM build of Windows 11 to begin with. So they were just like, hey, it's good to go. Let's roll it out now. And I think that makes sense. So it's good to see. It's an interesting change for the Windows updates model, but I think it's one that makes sense and is sort of necessary for this sort of age of Windows as a service, or OS as a service. All of these platforms do it these days, where they announce an OS, ship the OS, then add more features to it over time. So that's pretty cool. Moving over to the dev channel, this week was a big week for the Insider program. They released a new build with loads and loads of new features in it. Now, if you listened to last week's show, we kind of spoiled some of this. Sorry, Microsoft. But lots of this stuff is exciting stuff. App folders in the start menu, which is super nice to see. You can have funny group apps in folders in that pinned sort of grid system on the start menu, which is really nice. New tablet gestures, things like swiping up from the bottom to open start, or swiping up from the corner to open quick settings. Great stuff to enhance this sort of tablet UX there. There's a new focus timer thing in the notification shade, which pairs itself with the clock app, so you can set up a focus session directly from the Action Center on Windows 11 now in the dev build, which is an interesting change. I'm not too keen on that. I wish you could turn it off, because I'm never going to use focus sessions. But it's now in there. It's like front and center in the notification shade.
I kind of agree. I mean, I'm a little hesitant, or I'm not really expecting to use that feature either. Yeah. That said, its positioning definitely, I think, increases the chances I would try it.
Sure. Yeah, because they're surfacing it, right? They're making it so you can see it.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now it's buried in an app that you would never, like, was it in clocks and clock. And I mean, no one's going to find it there. So I think this is a smart move to increase engagement. Whether you and I actually use it remains to be seen. But I think the overall concept is super interesting.
Yeah. They've also moved the focus assist button into the notification shade, and that's notable only because it was weird before. The focus assist button affected the notification shade, but that button wasn't in the notification shade. It was in the quick settings panel. So they finally rectified that by moving the focus assist button into the notification shade. They've also renamed focus assist. It's now just called focus. So simplifying that, I guess. And it still works exactly the same. So there's no real changes there. There's a new feature called live captions. This is really cool. Android already does this. I think iOS does as well. But Windows is now getting a sort of similar feature called live captions, which will analyze the audio coming out of your device and attempt to display subtitles. So even if you're watching content that doesn't have captions, Windows will do its best to sort of to give that to you anyway. And this feature right now only works in the US, unfortunately. But it does work really well. We did a video this week sort of demoing it briefly, and it surprisingly does a good job at sort of listening to the people talking and presenting it as text. And you can move the bar from the top to the bottom or make it a window, and you can even make it so it's listening to your mic. So in addition to listening to video coming out of your laptop or TV or PC or whatever, you can also speak into it and it will dictate that as well, which is pretty fancy. Some file explorer improvements. They've updated the quick access area with a new pinned files sort of menu, so you can now right click pinned files and they will remain there, which is nice, I guess. And they've also updated the OneDrive integration, so you can now see your remaining cloud storage within the file explorer dropdown, which is just under the window controls. Just a small UI change there, but that's still nice to see. As I mentioned, we have all those new touch gestures. Another sort of minor thing they've updated with the gestures. The notification shade now is sort of fluid and follows your finger. Previously, when you would swipe it open, it would just play a preset animation, so it wouldn't follow your finger. And that really breaks down the whole fluid aspect of the Windows UX. So they finally updated that behavior now, so that when you swipe it open, it follows your finger. And that's such a small thing, but it's really important if you want to try and make your UX feel as fluid as possible, which is super nice. Snap layouts, this is the snap bar thing I mentioned last week, but now whenever you drag a window around, a menu or a sort of a list of snap grids will pop down from the bottom of the screen, which will allow you to drag your window up into it and initiate snap mode that way. So that's essentially a third UX for initiating snap in some kind. You have the ability to drag that side to the side of your screen to do that, which is kind of cumbersome on an ultra wide. Then you have the ability to hover over a window control to see the snap grids via that drop down. And now there's this third one where you can drag to the top of the screen and initiate snap modes that way as well. So that's pretty cool. Another productivity feature, which I think is nice to see. Sustainable power settings and recommendations. If you have a laptop and you go into power and battery now, there will be sort of tips and stuff there to sort of enhance your power and whatnot in there as well. And there's also now a link in there, power consumption and carbon emissions, and you can learn how to be more efficient regarding with using your laptop and stuff, improving battery life, so on and so forth. So that's interesting. Task Manager's getting a redesign. It now has dark mode and sort of a WinUI aesthetic sort of around the legacy interface. It's very clearly just the old Task Manager pasted into a WinUI frame. But still, it looks nice, I think, so that's not too bad. There's also an efficiency mode, which isn't new. They actually demoed that or previewed that last year, then they pulled it from the builds. It's now back, and what that essentially allows you to do is tell apps to chill out if they're using too many resources by right-clicking, selecting efficiency mode, and that will sort of limit how much it can take up on your CPU or GPU, which is pretty cool. And then just loads and loads of just minor improvements and stuff. We're not going to go for everything. We'll be here all day. But, drag and drop in the taskbar, finally back in this build. This is a big feature that people have been waiting for a long time. It was in Windows. It's been in every version of Windows since the taskbar arrived, I think, since Windows 95. And then it was gone in Windows 11. It's now back in the dev channel build, and that's pretty nice. They've also updated the animation when you turn your tablet between portrait and landscape. It should now be a bit smoother, which is cool. And yeah, there's just minor changes to emojis, system tray, sort of icons are being updated here and there. And they've also added a very subtle acrylic, mica effect to title bars, Win32 title bars, which in the internal builds was way more pronounced. In the actual dev channel build, it's barely noticeable. Like I thought it wasn't working, but it is there, and it is active, and even though it is very minor. But that's basically the big sort of new features in the dev channel build. Dan, are you excited for any of this?
Well, first I just want to tell people if all this sounded overwhelming and there was a lot going on, make sure to go watch
Yeah.
Zach's walkthrough video on our YouTube channel, where he goes and demonstrates everything he just explained, which makes much more sense when you see it in action. Yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm pretty happy with Windows 11 as is. Like they gave me the little weather icon. I'm like done. That said, I'm also one of those people who doesn't know what they want until someone kind of shows it to them. So a lot of these changes are great. I like, even the finger gestures, right, and how they follow your fingers as you're doing across the screen. The improved tablet gestures in general, right? We know foldable PCs are coming this year. There'll be more. Asus already announced one. Intel announced that this is a thing. It's been all the companies are cooperating on this. And the question Zach and I have had for a while is, okay, but what about the tablet improvements for Windows 11? Now, we still don't know how it's going to handle like when it folds and you kind of got dual screens, but things like screen rotation improvement is going to be critical for these kind of devices. The swiping gestures and being improvement there is going to be critical for these devices. I don't think these devices, these foldable PCs, will be handheld in the traditional sense, like a magazine. You're going to use it like that. They're still going to be kind of big and heavy, especially going by the Intel spec, which is a 17.3-inch display. It's a big honking device. It's not going to be super light. So you're not going to be using these like an iPad where you hold it, but you'll be using it in all the different postures, right? Tent mode, tablet mode, like laying flat. You're going to use it as a laptop mode. You're going to be using it with a kickstand maybe to make it a full display. So these little improvements, I feel like, kind of go towards that and improving that from at least what I've seen with these foldable type PCs becoming a thing this year. Efficiency mode, improvements around the battery life. Of course, I am glad to see them focusing on like a lot of these sort of enhancements around performance, battery, because it's so critical to the mobility of PCs, which, I've been talking about for years now is becoming a thing. We have 5G laptops now. We have ARM, of course, and anything that can make the OS more efficient and smarter. And part of this goes hand in hand with like what Intel is doing with 12th gen and also AMD. Intel has their thread conductor, which works with Windows 11 to prioritize certain apps, but AMD also did a lot with the Ryzen 6000 series for optimizing different sleep states. And so you're seeing a lot of this kind of effect on it. So I think all this stuff is really neat. We should point out Deb Channel has this asterisk by it, which is basically all these features.
Right.
Doesn't mean they will actually ship what will presumably be now in that fall edition. We don't know though, right? So there's a couple things there. All the features may not ship ever. Some features may be wrapped up early and shipped before the fall update, and then others may just be held back for the fall update. And some may not even make the fall update. They may come into later things. So it's going to be interesting to see what makes the cut. But yeah, although they're doing a lot of fit and finish, I would say, to the operating system. The folders and start menu, again, I don't care about personally, but I absolutely get why people want that feature. So I'm glad to see it here. Same with the drag and drop stuff, right? That's, I mentioned that last week. For me, this is just about I can stop hearing the complaints from people about those missing features and why Microsoft is so dumb. So I'm glad to see that and that people will benefit from those features. But yeah, I mean, it's what we're seeing is consistency from them. Like I said, the fit and finish, attention to detail. And I think they're making a lot of smart decisions about how these computers are, being used this year and going forward. And I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. Now, there is one controversial change introduced with this build and additionally the next major release of Windows 11, and that is Microsoft is going to enforce the same requirement that it enforces on Windows 11 Home regarding requiring an internet connection and a Microsoft account when setting up your PC for the first time. Now, previously, Microsoft sort of positioned Windows 11 Pro as the version to get if you didn't want that. And now that's going away. So Windows 11 Home and Windows 11 Pro will be treated the same. You have to connect to the internet and sign in with a Microsoft account if you want to use your PC when setting up for the first time. And that's a bit annoying. I personally, I do use a Microsoft account with my PC. Like I'm signed into the Studio 2 here. I have my Microsoft account set up. Yet I don't do that during the initial out-of-box experience. And the only reason I don't is because maybe I'm OCD. I don't know. But because Windows does it, it sets up your user directory using the first 5 characters of your email address rather than your first name. I like to set up Windows so that my user account is in C users Zach. However, if you sign into a Microsoft account in the out-of-box experience, it will do C users Zach BO because that's the first 5 letters of my email. And that's really annoying, especially if you're a developer who's often typing into your user directory and stuff. That can throw you off, especially if you use an ambiguous email. You might have some sort of nickname or just some random characters if you really don't want people to know your email address, and that's what will become your user directory. You know, the start menu stuff will still show your actual name, but your user directory will be the first 5 letters of your email address. And that's just really annoying to me. So how I've done it previously is I've skipped the whole MSA setup in OOBE, created a local account, named it Zach, blah, blah, blah. Then once I hit the desktop, then I sign in with a Microsoft account so that the user directory is my name correctly, yet I still get all the benefits of a Microsoft account. That's no longer going to be possible because Microsoft has also fixed the bypass that people were using where you jumped into Taskman in the out-of-box experience, killed network connection flow, and then that would allow you to bypass the internet requirement. That's fixed in the latest dev channel build, so people will have to find other ways around it. I'm sure there are other ways around it. I'm not aware of them yet. But by default, the actual policy now is you will have to connect to the internet and sign in with an MSA on Windows 11 Pro. Will this be a big deal for most people? I don't think so. It will be for the people who specifically bought Windows Pro to not have to do this in the last 6 or so months, because I know I certainly bought an extra key just to have it for my laptop studio. But who knows at this point? Again, it's not the end of the world. It's just a minor inconvenience at most, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a feature thing I don't care about. You know, I find it funny that there's you make a good point about the user directory thing, right? That's definitely, I think, a concern. We should point out, again, this isn't dev channel. This is A/B testing. This is something that this is why it's in dev channel, so they can get feedback from users and enterprise and their different channels of users to see what works and what doesn't. For instance, like, if they can come up with a fix for what Zach's talking about, would that ameliorate the situation, right? Would that solve the biggest complaints about this? Maybe, right? I don't think. I do find it funny from someone who doesn't touch any of that stuff, and even I don't care about Windows 10 Pro because, as a consumer, it really has nothing. The differences between Pro and Home are so minimal these days, unless you're an actual pro who actually needs like some of those 5 features that are really restricted mostly for enterprise and some developers. Then it's crucial. But for most, our average listener absolutely does not need Windows 10 Pro. But which is funny too, because I always ask them like, oh, what feature do you need in Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro? And they pause because they don't know. They just know that it's Pro. Pro in English just means better and more expensive, and that's all they need to know, right? But they can't actually articulate. Even I can struggle to articulate what the actual features are in Windows 11 Pro versus the Home Edition. That said, I also find it funny that for years you buy any smartphone, you absolutely require an internet to get past the welcome screen. Like the whole thing, they all require Wi-Fi or your SIM in the device to get to the home screen. It's just a fact of life for a lot of devices. When I set up my Chromecast, I had to be connected to the internet. It makes sense for devices. It's easier to onboard them and set them up when they connect to accounts and do things via the internet. So I don't find it strange that we have all this other technology around us that absolutely requires an internet connection to get started, that people freak out on PC. Like I said, though, you make some valid concerns, but I'll also have that asterisk that this isn't testing. It's A/B, and they're just trying to get feedback on how this works. So we'll see what happens.
They've already fixed one issue, another issue I did have where on Windows 10, I think they fixed it with Windows 11's launch build, but Windows 10 did this where if you signed in with an MSA, Windows 10 would automatically name your device some random string. It'd be like desktop dash blah, blah, blah.
Right.
which was really annoying. If you went into your Microsoft accounts page and stuff, that would show up as the name. And you're like, I don't know what device that is. What are you talking about? Windows 11, if you connect to the internet, it does give you the option to name your PC before you sign with a Microsoft account.
Which was, again, that's the only feature I cared about.
Yeah.
I was so happy to see that. As someone who has like over 200 devices on their MSA, like me being able to call the computer what it is absolutely helped. That's the only thing I cared about.
Yeah, and that is actually there now, and that's in the shipping build of Windows 11, which is really nice. So hopefully, if we kick and scream enough about this other user directory thing, they'll hopefully update that behavior as well. In that case, I'm totally cool with this. I'm happy to sign in with an MSA during the out-of-box experience, as long as they can get the user directory to name itself correctly, rather than using the first 5 characters of my email address. There was something else I wanted to mention about this, but I've totally lost my train of thought.
Sorry, well, while you're thinking of it, I'll just mention, I saw someone make a comment like, well, what happens if they don't have the drivers installed for Ethernet or Wi-Fi? I have not seen that happen in years. First of all, every single new PC or laptop that I've set up, which has been a lot, all the drivers are already there and installed in the image, of course. If you're doing any older PC on a generic thing, or you're just flashing, say, Windows 11 to an older PC, like all the default Wi-Fi Ethernet drivers are in the build. Like they have like default generic drivers. And I've never seen this fail where it's like, oh, you need to now manually load drivers. I guess if you have like something from 10 years ago using some weird like 56K modem, like you might have an issue, but this is not a concern at all. I've never seen this have to fetch specific drivers. Even like the screen will automatically update the resolution and get the drivers for your GPUs. Like it's been, this is again how like technology changes around us if we don't appreciate the small changes. Like I do remember 10 years ago, like installing stuff and having to get drivers separately and putting them on there. Like it used to be a pain, or you'd have to wait, you would install Windows and none of your stuff worked and you'd have to go and fetch the drivers. Remember, you had to go to the OEM website, download the drivers manually, install them. It all goes now through Windows Update. And it's such a seamless, nice experience compared to where it was a long time ago. But people don't appreciate it because it's been a slow incremental change. Even with the store itself, we see so many OEM apps in there now that are, don't need to be fetched from the OEM's website. HP does this, Lenovo does this, Dell does this. They all have apps in the store now, which is really great.
And to answer the question of what happens if you don't have those drivers, nothing. You can't progress. It doesn't let you. I've tried this. Windows 10X was the same. It would, if you didn't have the driver for internet, it would be like, listen, you need to connect. So that's kind of how that works. And in that process, in that scenario, rather, you would then sort of enter audit mode, so you could hit the desktop in a sort of special mode, which allows you to install drivers or programs before, and then when you restart,
slipstream.
Yeah, you go back into the box experience, and then you have the driver there and stuff. But if you're booting up a PC that doesn't have support for the basic internet driver, you're probably not even supported by Windows 11 anyway. So.
I think that's a safe bet right there. Yeah. Let's be clear. Most Windows 11 qualified PCs are 2017 and later, and those will absolutely work with standard Ethernet and internet.
Don't get me wrong.
Stuff.
There will be scenarios where you want a PC, or whether it be a VM or whatever, to be set up without internet. It might not even be for internet. You might need it for some sort of local purpose only. In which case, I don't really know what Microsoft has on offer there in regards to Windows 11. Maybe Enterprise does that, or Pro for workstations. I really don't know. If they don't, then obviously Windows 10 is still around, and that's probably going to be your option for now. But I don't really know what Microsoft's plan is in regards to that scenario where you need a device running Windows that just will never connect to the internet. It's not for that. It's on a local intranet, or it's just running in some sort of a local retail store, and it's just supposed to run an app, that shows off what's on sale and stuff. Or something. I don't know. But I don't know what Microsoft's going to do.
Yeah, I feel like, though, that's a case where like you're going to have OEMs or the company, like there are laptops like that, but then they just do a custom
image.
build
Yeah, you're
image
right.
of the operating system, just like how schools do custom images for deploying to devices, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, and also going back to your comments about how other platforms do this, it totally makes sense why Microsoft is now enforcing this on Windows as well. It's because there's so many features in Windows 11 that require an MSA. OneDrive, which is sort of being baked into the OS more and more with every new release. The widgets panel doesn't work unless you have a Microsoft account. They want you to have a Microsoft account so you can see those widgets and they can get their monthly active users up. Teams chat, that's an integrated part of the Windows experience. No one uses it, but it's still there and it requires a Microsoft account. So they want you to sign in with a Microsoft account. All the backup stuff requires a Microsoft account. If you're using Windows backup to sync Wi-Fi passwords, blah, 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 requires an MSA. Edge requires an MSA if you want to sync bookmarks and passwords and all that stuff. Office requires an MSA. Most of what the Windows experience these days requires an MSA in some sort of capacity to sort of utilize it to its full extent. So it totally makes sense that they are forcing the MSA on you now, because I'm sure the data suggests that nobody's signing in with an MSA, and therefore all of these services that Microsoft builds and sort of is how they monetize the platform isn't being used. And that's bad news for the business. So that's why it's being forced. It kind of sucks, especially if you're somebody who doesn't want an MSA. But at the end of it, what are we going to do?
Your smartphone absolutely requires
it does,
a Google account or an Apple account. Like, you just have to have these things. I just don't find them like they're going with the trends of all technology, not against it. So I get there are people that, but this is the issue we always face with Windows. You make any change, there's going to be someone who doesn't like it. I'm sure there's someone out there who absolutely hates Mika. They probably will write a 5,000 word post on Reddit about how acrylic was the superior choice. There's just going to always be like that. So I guess we'll see what happens. Let's move on to, we got to still do Android apps on Windows 11, huh?
Oh, yeah, we do. So, yeah, like I mentioned about half an hour ago, Android apps are now sort of on the production build of Windows 11. It is US only. But they also announced that with this sort of launch, I guess, or preview launch, I don't know what they want to call it, the Amazon App Store now has 1,000 plus apps in it. I've taken a look at this. Most of it's crap, but there are more apps than 50 now. So I guess that's good news. But this was always going to be the case. The Amazon App Store is pretty bare. It's only good for Amazon's own apps, really, and there's sometimes a few games in there that you might want to play, but most of it's rubbish. So yeah, this is an interesting sort of thing. I've always said Microsoft has just done it on its own and gone through, told developers to submit Android apps directly to the Microsoft Store. They didn't do it that way. They've gone this Amazon App Store route, which is a shame in my opinion. But it is now out, and the system requirements for it are, I don't think they're too surprising, though. Dan, I think you do want to sort of mention them briefly.
Yeah, it requires 8 gigs of RAM, but they recommend 16.
Sure.
It requires at least a 8th gen Intel processor, and actually, an SSD.
8th gen?
So a lot of this. Huh?
Wow, the Surface Studio 2 does not support Android apps.
It'd be interesting to see if you can try to use it, but
I'm sure it will.
There's ways of, it's all things Microsoft again, right? There's ways around this. You can force install this on, and there are little guides out there, and there are tricks to get this working, and it will work. They are setting up what they consider the bare minimum to have a certain guaranteed experience. / they're not going to go back to 7th gen, 6th gen, and test every scenario and say it works fine. There are a lot of processors out there, and I imagine that takes time. And so that's all that means. But there are technically ways around this should you really, really want to install the subsystem for Android on your PC. Right. Yeah, so I will say, we talked about previously about it uses a lot of RAM. I didn't actually find that. I was looking at running it on my computer today or a few days ago, and I was only using around 500 megabytes of RAM.
Well, was you looking at just the app, though? Because there's a separate service that runs the OS, which has all the RAM.
Okay. I'll check that out later. I thought maybe that changed. It is more resource intensive, obviously. So there is still the question of how useful is this, putting aside the fact that this doesn't have Google Play services, right, which is what most people rely on. And you may be like, why is Microsoft up? I guarantee you they would be totally fine with doing something with Google Play services and Google on this, but Google won't allow it because they have Chrome OS and they want to keep it to themselves, which I don't blame them. But that's going to be, if you want to put the blame anywhere, it's going to be definitely on Google, not Microsoft. And I'm sure, there's only so many app stores. They're not going to use a Huawei app store. They could do Samsung. We've talked about that previously. I could see that being limited to Samsung PCs. And we may see that happen. Like Mobile World Congress is going to happen soon. I expect Samsung to have some news around there. We'll see if they do something with this. On the other hand, they've also recreated all their S apps already on Windows as UWP apps, which are pre-installed on all their laptops. So maybe they don't really need to. I don't know what value they'd get. But that's an option. Microsoft has gone on record, said, we are open to other Android app stores. It's not like a blocking thing. It's just they're going with Amazon first. They have a relationship there. But, we rated last week, which was better, Android app emulation or using your phone. And, we both agreed kind of your phone was better because it uses the apps on your phone. You get Google Play services. You're already logged in. It has your information versus if you use multiple PCs, you're going to have to install this subsystem, which doesn't take long, reboots the PC, it gets back in, you launch the Amazon store, and then you got to log into your Amazon account. Hopefully you use your 2FA, you get in there, and then you got to start finding apps you may want. It's not and I'm not sure what the value is there. The only thing I've tried to install really is Kindle, and that's okay. I'm not convinced I'm going to use Kindle on my PC though, like that. Especially there's already a web version of Kindle, which works good enough in my opinion. But that's an option for people. I should mention there is now a sideload tool. I forgot the name here. It's called WSA Tools, all one word. You can go to Windows Central, just type that in, or type in Android APK sideload, and you'll probably get the article. And what it is, it's a separate app that streamlines installing downloaded APKs. So you can go to APK Mirror, and some of the stuff is frowned upon. It's technically stealing and all this kind of stuff. So I'll leave that moral judgment to you. But if you're using like a free app like Instagram or Outlook or something like that, it's not going to be a big deal, obviously, since they're already free. But you can then just install these APKs without the Amazon store and fill in those gaps. Now, that still doesn't get you Google Play services. So Google Maps and Gmail and all these kind of things are still out of the question. Now, there is a way to do Google Play Store using Windows 11, because of course there is. We do in that article link to our guide on it. We published this back in October. It's called, give you the title, How to Run Google Play Store Android Apps on Windows 11. Just type that in to Google or Bing or our website and you'll come up with it. I have not tried this. It is a ton of steps. I can't even count how many parts there are to this. It's one of the longest how-tos I've ever seen our how-to guy Mauro do. It is just absurd. It was absurd he actually wrote this up. It's a massive, massive project. I don't know how long it's going to take you. It must take at least an hour to set this up, but you can then do it if you really, really want. But then it comes back to the question, why? I've heard people say like they want 2FA apps on their PC, which, okay. They want like some kind of security apps, although Ring, I've mentioned, has now a PWA website, which supposedly works very well. And more companies are doing this. Again, I'll use Eufy, but I can do that through your phone. I'm not sure there's just a ton of Android apps out there that I want. And the ones I have, the ones I do want, like my Tesla app, is available on your phone, but I don't think it's available on the Amazon store. So it's like, I don't know. I'm really curious about what consumers do with this. Now, we should point out there is the other half, which is developers. And for developers, that's a whole other thing. I think if you're an Android app dev, this is a cool way to deploy apps and test them and see how they work. And that may be it. That may be the use case for this. Microsoft really hasn't been too clear about who this is aimed at. But if developers want to use it for testing their apps, I think it's awesome. Like, I'm just not sure. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I know because it's US only. We always get a lot of pushback on that because, only Microsoft only cares about the US. But as Zach pointed out, the Amazon store apparently is only US only. But like, I don't think you're missing much if you're not getting this. I really don't. I've tried it. Zach's tried it. It's like, okay, it's cool. And then you use it and you're like, all right, I'm just going to go back to the regular stuff. So, but we mentioned last week, I believe, Android 12L. It's going to allow app developers to create apps that are more like Windows apps in the future because they're going to run on Chrome OS as full screen apps and windowed apps and stuff like that. And that's interesting down the road. Maybe in 2 years, if that actually app developers create their apps to be like that, these will run more like native Windows apps. That's kind of interesting. I still don't know the use case. Like, I'm still figuring out what app I need on that's Android based that I need on my PC. But I guess we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. So I think that's everything Windows for the week. Lots of stuff happened in the Windows world this week. But we can now move on to Surface and Surface hardware with the Surface Laptop 5. Now, I've sort of mentioned a few times now that I was hearing the Surface Laptop 5 was going to launch in the fall. This spec sheet makes me question that because it's pretty detailed, and this is the sort of thing you'd really only see when a device is getting close to launch. So we perhaps will see a Laptop 5 in the spring. Maybe it'll be a Surface Laptop 4 Plus. We don't really know. But this week, specs for the next Surface Laptop did leak online. And the scenarios at the very top of the tech specs is new and improved design with Pixel Sense Flow 120Hz display for everyday productivity. And that's basically the most noticeable thing in that text there. So obviously the big thing here will be 12th gen Intel and AMD Ryzen 6000 series chips, which will be current chips for the Surface Laptop, which I think is the first time on the AMD side. Last year, Intel was current with the Laptop 4. And that's going to be a big deal, that the Intel Core i5 and i7, the 1280p. I don't know if that specific one's been announced yet, but that's going to be awesome. And then the Ryzen 7 6980U, or the Ryzen 5 6680U for the AMD side as well. So lots of power here for these sort of laptops. Looking at the dimensions and stuff, I don't think this is going to be too radical of a design change. I know it mentions new and improved design, but the dimensions are pretty much identical to the Laptop 4, including the screen sizes, which means the bezels can't have shrunk. I think the bezels...
No!
Right. I think the bezels are going to be the same. The spec sheet does mention an additional USB-C port, so 2 USB-C ports, both of which will be Thunderbolt 4 enabled, which is a big upgrade.
Correction. Whoa. It's a little more tricky than that, Zach.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thunderbolt 4, 2 ports for the Intel version.
Right.
AMD does not get Thunderbolt 4. It'll get USB 4.
Right.
What's the difference? They're both Type-C. They both use a similar cable. Thunderbolt 4 is better. That's really the TLDR. Thunderbolt 4 is definitely better than USB 4. That said, USB 4 is a lot better than USB 3.1 and narrows the gap. So USB 4 can do up to 40 gigabits per second transfer rate, the same as Thunderbolt 4. I say it can because it does depend on the OEM. It can also just be 20 gigabits per second. Thunderbolt 4 is it's a spec. It has requirements. It has to be 40 gigs. It can never be less than that. So we don't know how they're speccing this. You can also only do one display up to 4K, I believe, maybe 8K through USB 4, whereas Thunderbolt 4 can do 2 displays at 4K or 1 display at 8K. That may be why they're using 2 ports, 2 USB 4 ports, because then it should allow you to connect up to 2 external displays. So there's a couple other little changes and differences between the two. Basically, Thunderbolt 4 is more powerful for docking and single cable setups. USB 4, it's great. It's more standardized. It's also cheaper, right? To go Thunderbolt 4 is a spec, and the parts a little bit more expensive USB. But that's AMD. AMD can only do that, right? Because Thunderbolt 4 is technically an Intel technology. But it's going to be much better than where it is now. And I think most people will be okay with it. But
Yeah.
So
that's basically all the new stuff. The same colors, same battery sort of capacities, I believe.
I'm just glad Alcantara is still an option for 2 models.
Yep.
I'm always worried that they're going to cut that, what I call a signature feature. Of course, it's only available in a 13-inch, right? They don't do it in a 15.
Right.
But I'm still hardcore Team Alcantara, so I'm glad that's still here.
Yes.
The processors are going to be really interesting because, as you mentioned, Ryzen 6000. And Ryzen 6000, I am expecting some really good stuff. I've been critical of AMD in the past in the laptop section for Ultrabooks. I think all that is 100% warranted. I think the 6000 series, though, is going to go a longer way to fixing those issues. Specifically, if you don't know, OEMs had an issue with AMD where plugged in, they run full performance, they're awesome, and then when you go on battery, they cut the performance sometimes by up to 40%. It's not just the CPU, it's the CPU, the GPU, and even the SSD would slow down, all in an attempt to preserve and extend battery life, because Intel still did better in battery life, despite AMD fans going, oh, AMD is so much more efficient. They're efficient because they hobbled their processors on battery. That is still technically can be done with the Ryzen 6000 series. It just is not as needed. Basically, their chips have gotten better now with these different sleep state levels that they're introducing. So we shouldn't, unless an OEM really forces it, we shouldn't see OEMs doing as much reduction of performance across all those components with the new AMD Ryzen 6000. Something I'm going to be definitely looking out for. But I do believe the gap between a Ryzen 6000 and Intel 12th Gen P series is going to be close. We may actually see AMD win out in some of the GPU race, sometimes in the performance. Intel's got, I believe, more cores this time, which is really interesting. So it's going to be a really interesting challenge. I will say also in this regard, if you're an AMD fan, I am seeing way more laptops coming out this year that will be announced later on that will be Intel or AMD. You'll be able to choose between them, which tells me OEMs are finally, it's not that they're coming around to AMD, it's that AMD finally got their act together and actually have a good, a worthy competitor to where Intel is. But that's going to be an interesting race.
I do want to make a small correction. I lied about the battery capacities. The laptop 5 does have a bigger battery. It has, let me see here, according to this spec sheet, of course, capacity 58 or minimum capacity 56.3. The laptop 4 had 45.8 for the minimum. So that's
a big difference.
Yeah. But like I said, the dimensions are almost the same. I think it's slightly thicker, the laptop 5. But
yeah, that's because they shrunk the board down, because both AMD and Intel now are on a smaller
that makes
die
sense.
process.
That makes
so you get
sense.
to save space.
Yeah. But like I mentioned, everything else basically the same display, other than higher refresh rate. The resolution is the same, so the PPI is the same. But yes, 120 hertz does appear to be part of the laptop 5 if the spec sheet is correct, which is nice. Obviously, 120 hertz, I'm never going to say no to that. And obviously, the bigger battery will help with keeping battery life up with a higher refresh rate display. But yeah, otherwise, it's not looking like this is going to be a huge release in regards to design. But a nice one, the additional port, the better display, bigger battery, and the chips, the more efficient chips are obviously very welcome changes. Regarding when this will show up, like I mentioned, I thought this was coming in the fall, but the sort of the specs sheet leaking now suggests it could be here perhaps in the spring alongside Laptop Go 2. But we'll have to wait and see about that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Surface Laptop is... you and I always talk about this. It's technically kind of a boring device, but it's also kind of a perfect laptop.
It's really nice.
The keyboard, the front-facing camera is still unmatched. Yeah, okay. I don't care about the bezels. I think the bezels are thin enough. It has a really nice display. I still hope that they do anti-reflective, but I'm not expecting that actually to be a thing, but maybe they'll surprise me. 120 hertz refresh will be really nice, of course, and now have the variable refresh rate to save battery. It's still, I'm not expecting that screen technology to be where phones are these days, like Samsung's new phone this week. The new Galaxies can drop down to like 1 frame per second when idle, and then ramp up. iPhones are doing this, I believe, now too. Unfortunately, that technology hasn't made it to larger displays, but that's something probably to look out for in the future. But I think it's going to be between the Intel 12th Gen and AMD, whichever one you pick, you're going to just have a really good experience. These should be also PCIe 4 SSDs, I would imagine, which is a massive difference in read and write times. You're going to get better battery life. Dan gets his Alcantara. These are just. I guess I'm a little disappointed in if this is accurate. No new colors, and the colors that they will have. Did you read off the colors, by the way?
It's the same. So platinum, sandstone, ice blue, and matte black.
Yeah. So, compared to where the colors were a couple years ago, specifically the burgundy, which I still think was awesome looking.
Yeah.
Ice blue is pretty great. I actually really like the ice blue one quite a bit. Black.
Cobalt blue was nice. Was the laptop 2 had cobalt blue, I think? Yeah, that was lovely.
Cobalt, yeah. Yeah, that was a more intense blue, where ice blue is a little bit obviously lighter, going by its name. The black I don't recommend.
It's too fingerprinty.
Yeah, you get the Alcantara with the black, and it'll actually hold up longer.
But the metal just looks greasy all the time.
Yeah, the exterior, it just picks up fingerprints like crazy. Unless they're adjusting it.
Yeah, if they adopt the same matte black that they've got on the Pro 8, then I could recommend the matte black one, because the Surface Pro 8, it's matte black, does a really good job of fighting off fingerprints. It barely shows up.
By the way, Zach, fix your focus.
Oh, my focus is out. That's hilarious. The Pro X and the laptop have just really fingerprinty metals for some reason, and my camera will not refocus. Great. Anyway, it doesn't. That's all I had to say anyway. So,
yeah. So Surface Laptop 5 looks very interesting. No surprises. I would, you did mention the fall thing and everything like that, but like I said, I believe they're going to try to launch this earlier, but I think it's completely contingent upon those chips. We still haven't seen Intel launch the 12th Gen P and U series. We're expecting that soon, but just because the device is going to come out with it doesn't mean they're being mass produced yet. New chips, new architectures have a slow ramp up speed. I don't think you'll see full production of these chips until later this summer, towards the fall. I think my hunch is we'll see the Dell XPS 13 Plus be the first Intel 12th Gen P device. I don't know that for a fact, but Dell and Intel traditionally have done that. So, but Microsoft may be able to get some wiggle room here and maybe getting the chips earlier, either for Intel or AMD, and maybe trying to get this out at an earlier time frame than, say, in the fall in October, which goes back to probably like what we're just talking about with Windows 11. It's more dynamic. We'll ship something when we can versus arbitrarily waiting for something. So. Yeah. So very cool stuff. All right, let's move on now to your phone update. So there was quite a few of those this week. Zach, you want to take us through that, or?
Was there a few? I only know the one.
There's just the one major one, right?
Yeah, so the one major one is, and this was announced at the Samsung event. We may have already talked about it. I can't remember. But the Your Phone app is being updated for Samsung devices only, and that means no Surface Duo support. With a sort of system tray icon that will show you your 3 most recent Android apps if you're using the apps feature built into Your Phone. So I believe whenever you access them, it will update the Your Phone app, and you can quickly access them and launch them straight from the system tray. Cool idea in theory. But Dan, you have the feature. Have you used it?
No. It works well. I mean, all it is first of all, I kind of like the Your Phone being an icon in the overflow tray. I kind of like that option.
Yeah.
Just like it's kind of cool. It's just a great way to have it always running as an option. You can always hide it, of course. In fact, it doesn't even turn on by default, which was kind of weird. So you have to go into your settings and make it show on purpose, but that may change later on. So yeah, this gets back to if you use the app streaming stuff on your phone with your Samsung device. Even with the Duo, so the Duo 2, of course, has this feature now as well. But to use with the Duo 2, you have to kind of leave the device open and spans on your desk. which is kind of weird. Like I really wish I could just keep the phone closed.
The worst thing for me is that you have to re-authenticate it if you restart your device. So you give it permission, and if you restart, you have to give it permission again, which makes it completely useless to me. Because I don't know how often my device restarts, but it will restart sometimes, and I'll do it or whatever. But I will forget, and if my device is in the other room and I go to use the Your Phone feature and it says, "Hey, you got to accept the permission,"
yes,
I'm done. I'm not using it. I'm going to get my phone. I'll just do it on the phone. It's just really annoying.
And the fact you can't really leave it in your pocket,
Yeah.
and you have to unfold it, makes me use it less.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a stand on my desk for my Duo 2, so I can just mount it and leave it like that, and it's fine. It does technically leave the screens on, but they black out, so they don't really use much power. The Samsung obviously doesn't have this issue unless you're using the Flip or their Galaxy Fold. It's the same issue. The Flip, it can't be flipped closed, basically. So that's more, I think, of an Android thing, and just how you're basically turning off the screen, right? Like it tells the system to turn off the screen when you close it. So they would have to figure a way to override that. And I imagine that's a little bit tricky. But if you're using like a regular Galaxy slab phone, it's a little bit better. And so it comes down to, do you use those apps? If you're using them daily, I imagine there are some people that definitely are. This gets back to this, like, it's not for me. I don't really kind of care, but I'm also glad it's there. I think it's a smart feature and a way to roll this out as the stuff continues to improve. But it's also not, I don't know, an amazing feature. So
where does the Your Phone team go from here? They've basically done everything now, right? You can do phone calls.
Well,
you can do apps.
Yeah, and that was the other news I was going to say. And we've talked about this before, although I have it now, which is the new Your Phone app design, which some people are getting. This appears to be A/B testing, and so if you haven't seen it, it's kind of nice. We put some photos up and I tweeted it out. But basically, on the left side now, you have like a running notifications center, just like that kind of looks like the one on Windows 11.
Yeah.
So you always see your notifications and your text messages, and they're just like a scrolling thing, which is nice. And you can even like respond directly to text messages. And now at the top, you have the different categories for messages, photos, and calls. And it works really well. I think it looks a lot better. It's a lot easier to get into your notifications and manage them or respond to text messages through it. And it's been working really nicely for me. They also have been A/B testing the buttons for like Bluetooth, do not disturb, volume, and music are now rounded corner squares.
Nice.
But which again, I think it looks way better, right? So they're just making all these small changes. As to when that rolls out, I'm not really sure, of course. But Your Phone I think it's a great app. It can always be better, of course, but it is, even with my Duo, I do use it all the time because I love the notifications. I love the text messaging and photos. It's the easiest way to take photos with your phone.
Yeah.
And if you're at your PC, to then transfer those photos or drop them into an app or something like that. I think that's really kind of cool.
The photos and the notification syncing is easily the top two reasons why I use Your Phone. It's just really nice to be able to see text messages come in on your PC, and you don't have to deal with them there, but just to see them rather than having to pull your phone, especially on the Duo, which when it's closed, you can't see what's coming up on the screen. Basically, Your Phone acts as the screen in that case, so you can see the notifications, and that's really nice. So yeah, like I definitely recommend Your Phone if you're using a Samsung or a Surface Duo. Obviously, Samsung does appear to get first dibs on new features, which I guess is just part of the Samsung Microsoft mobile partnership they seem to sort of have.
Yeah, there's also, we always bring this up about this. There's like firmware, right? The Samsung goes deep into their OS and firmware levels and works with Microsoft to put these drivers in, which is something that other OEMs, like, who are the other OEMs? Like OnePlus. Again, I've always said this, like in the United States, it's like, I'm curious what the numbers are. Actually, I forgot what they are. It's got to be like 80% of the Android phones are Samsung, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they are Android.
It's just yeah. So, I mean, I feel bad as someone who really enjoyed Huawei phones. I know, hot topic, China, I get it, but Huawei made awesome phones. I mean, that's just a fact. They were absolutely challenging Samsung for a while there in terms of features.
Do we think Huawei will ever get to use Google services again? Is that a thing that can be reversed?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah,
I mean, the way things have been going with China, it doesn't seem like things are getting better. And do you remember my?
Go on.
What was my? I forgot the name of it. My giant Android.
I know. I can't remember. But I know. Was it the Mate X? No.
Mate X, I think it was.
Yeah. That was
if you haven't seen that device, I still have that somewhere. That's still my favorite Android phone I've ever had. That thing was just a friggin' beast.
Yeah.
So cool.
We should briefly mention that Samsung did announce new phones last week, I believe it was. The Galaxy S22, S22 Plus, and the Galaxy S22 Ultra, I think it was called. Yeah, and basically the Galaxy S22 Ultra is the new Note. It has the same design as the Note 20, more or less, with better cameras, and of course. But yeah, so the Note lives on in the S22 Ultra. The S22 and the S22 Plus are really nice looking phones. I actually think they might be the best looking Android phones on the market now. You have uniform bezel around the front and stuff, and they're not flat edges like on the iPhone, but they're slightly curved. I think they look great. Snapdragon Gen 1, whatever it's called, the latest flagship processor, or an Exynos equivalent if you're in other countries that aren't the US. But yeah, overall, I think that the phones are looking really nice. And we always recommend Samsung's phones if you're a Microsoft sort of ecosystem user. They are the best phones to get, really. Microsoft and Samsung's partnership is very tight. So, you get that Your Phone integration. Some of Microsoft's apps are pre-installed. And if you use things like the Note or the Ultra, you get additional sort of pen options in some of Microsoft's apps as well, which is really nice. Of course, if you have the money, get a Duo. But right. For those who don't have the money for something,
that's it. I mean, yeah, the Plus version is these are not cheap phones.
No, they're not cheap. They are flagships. Don't get me wrong. But the S22 I think starts at $800 or something like that, $899, $799. The Plus is $999, and the Ultra is I think $1299 or $1199. So yeah, they're not cheap phones, but they are certainly the best in the business in regards to Android, I think, and. It's good
into boring single screen phones.
They are boring single screen phones, but they are nice boring single screen phones. They are the best of the single screen
Reviews
phones.
have been pretty solid, although the battery life on them has been questionable.
Sure. Yeah, but I think that's the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. What's it called? The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 apparently is a hog when it comes to battery. It's really just and it gets hot apparently, and it throttles a lot. It's apparently not a great chip, which I don't know. What's the Duo 3 going to do about that?
It'll probably be on Gen 2 by the time that comes out. So maybe things will improve. I mean, yeah, there's also drivers and different optimizations that could happen between now and then. So I think we have time. But yeah, the Samsung stuff is it's interesting. It's like I'm just so bored with the camera phone stuff. I get it. Although, the benefit now in the camera phones is how many lenses you have. Like, that's really what that telephoto lens is pretty killer on it.
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, I have phones, and shout out to, I'm using my other Android phone that I play around with is the Realme Explorer GT Master. This is actually a really cool phone. And it's like a budget mid-range phone, but it also has 3 displays on it. But I honestly if you're open to saving money, I like this phone over the Samsung stuff, just in terms of price. But when it comes down to the cameras, it's funny. I'm just going to say at a press event this week. I can't name the company, of course, but I was doing a lot of my photos with the Duo 2. And if you don't believe me, by the way, if you go read my Surface Laptop SE review on Windows Central. Every single photo in that review was done with the Surface Duo 2. None of you noticed.
Did anyone complain? No.
Of course not, because people don't know. And I even posted, I went out to dinner with my cousin, took some photos, and someone was like, oh, but did you use the Duo 2? I'm like, yep, that was the Duo 2. It took better pictures than her iPhone. I think she has an iPhone 11 or something like that. So it's an older iPhone, of course. But still, the cameras are good enough for most people. They really are. I get the pixel peeping. But like I said, the value in cameras these days is really going to be the amount of lenses. You have wide, regular, and telephoto, the quality of the front-facing camera, and things like optical image stabilization. That's the thing that Realme did this week. The only reason I know this is because I was sent some Realme phones, even though I didn't ask for them. And so the new Realme phones are I forgot how much they're priced, but I think they were $500 or $600. But now they have optical image stabilization for the first time in that range, which it's a big deal, right? That's something you typically sacrifice. So I don't know. I find it weird. These Samsung phones, it's I guess if you have an S21, I can't see why you'd go to an S22. Outside of you just have money and you just want the latest and greatest and you're a tech nerd, which you may be if you're listening to this podcast. If you're a regular person, but there is that one trend I want to point out, which is important for Surface Duo, which is I've been saying for a while that the camera bumps are going away. If you see the new designs, the new Samsungs, they've really sort of recessed the entire camera module. The lenses are still raised a little bit, and they famously collect a ton of dust around the circles. But you'll see this trend, and the iPhone's been doing this, and I think with each new generation, you're going to start to see those camera bumps slowly go back into the chassis. It's not because they woke up and realized, oh my God, people don't like camera bumps and wobbly devices when you put them down. It's just the technology is shrinking and allows them to do that. And I firmly believe that the Microsoft team will want to do that with the Surface Duo 2, Surface Duo 3 when they can. It doesn't mean it'll be flush. I don't think it'll be that. But even if they can just have the lenses popping out, just slightly, that would be a huge deal going back to what I think is the original vision. But this is the progress we see in technology, and I think it's something to look out for as we go forward. All right. I guess we can do Edge and Safari. Not a ton to report here, although I believe I have the notes here.
How about, okay, so I thought nobody used Safari, so this is...
Well, it's the default browser on Apple's computers, and so
does this count iOS mobile, or is this just
no?
Mac?
It doesn't.
Okay, right, yeah. So that's why I thought nobody used Safari, because everybody I know who uses a Mac uses Chrome.
Sure. So okay, so Edge went from 8.1% of global desktop browser market share in February 2021 to 9.56% in February 2002. So it went up a little over 1%, almost 1.5%.
Is that
not a ton?
Yeah, it's not gonna say, is that good or bad?
No, it's good because there's just browser lock-in.
Right.
It's you don't see a lot of churn in browser adoption because people, and it's completely irrational, right? It's just people like the browser they use because it's what they know. And a lot of times it has all my passwords. It has all my bookmarks. Now, a lot of companies get around that. You can import that stuff, of course, but people get used to the way a browser feels and just muscle memory. And it's very difficult to get them to switch, especially when there's not like a night and day difference. That said, Safari's never been considered to be a great browser. So though some people will say it's good, it does run, it's made by Apple, supposedly it could run better, but it doesn't kind of keep up with Chrome, and since Edge is now based on Chrome. So I should also mention Safari went down from 10.27% to 9.75%. What this means is at this rate, it looks like Microsoft will take over from Safari at some point. It's still it's still funny when you see the chart because Chrome OS is so far ahead. So the Chrome browser is at 65%.
Yeah. Who's second place? Is it Firefox?
No. Let's see. Hold on. The numbers are so fine. I can't. They're so close. Firefox is 9.39%.
So that's still above Edge? Yeah, but barely, but it is.
Yeah, they're literally on top of each other. Basically, Firefox, Edge, and Safari are all effectively at the same. The difference is the trajectories. Edge is slowly going up.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is slowly going down, including Chrome. Not by a lot. Chrome, I just mentioned, is 65% now. It was at 68.7% in June 2021. So it is.
That's down.
It's dropping down. Yeah. And the only one that seems to be gaining anything is Edge. Opera lost. It's all at the expense of everything. Like Opera is now at 2.88%.
Oh, geez.
It went up for a little while, They went up, but then they were going back down again. But they've never been above really 3%.
Yeah.
So they're pretty far behind. And that doesn't count other things like Brave. Actually, shout out. I did try Brave. Brave's a good browser. It's actually really nice. I love their UI and design. And they have like Tor built into the private tab thing, which is pretty crazy. It's actually a really nice looking browser. I kind of like their home screen and stuff like that on that. So
I would use other browsers if it didn't require me having to download and install them. I use Edge because it's there and it's default, and I prefer using the default.
yeah, it's funny. I don't want to tell people to go download Brave now because they may switch to it. I don't think they will, but like it's worth it's I mean, it's part of my job to evaluate. It's like I could just be like, oh, Edge is amazing. It's the best browser out there because I don't use anything else. But Brave, I wanted to try because it really does try to do something different. Some of the people I believe from Edge that worked on Edge went to the Brave team, but they're doing like a different focus on privacy and stuff like that. That said, Edge, I like it because if you get into the ecosystem, you log into your Microsoft account, you use Microsoft Rewards, which is a big motivator. You use Bing, and you use those services. Then you have it on your phone and your PC, and they just sync together. I love being able to share pages between my PC and my phone and vice versa. Like it gets you into the hook, right? And Microsoft's doing a good job considering they don't own some of those platforms of syncing stuff between all the devices, like whether it's the tab history. They have their new shopping stuff. They just introduced, which I still don't know how it works. They have now app package tracking, which is kind of interesting. So if you go on Amazon and you buy something, it's like, do you want us to track your package? And I'm like, yes. I don't know where that goes. There's no like thing where I can follow it, but we'll see how that evolves. But they're adding just, I think, a lot of cool features to Edge. They're doing a lot of innovation. Again, they're doing things where if you asked me a year ago, I was happy with Edge. I'm happy with Edge today, but they're introducing features I wouldn't have thought to ask for that once they kind of come out with, I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty nifty. I love all the screen capture tools. You can now do like the snapshot and you can do like the entire web page, which is really nice. That's always existed as like third-party plugins. You could have always done that, but now it's like being built in. There's a lot of like ability to like, I like looking up a word and not opening a new tab. It just brings up a little pop-up window and gives you the definition. There's just doing a lot of smart things there, but Microsoft is obviously leveraging its Windows 11 being installed on more and more PCs and having a lot of momentum, and it being the default browser, gives them an advantage there. So I don't find this too surprising. But will they ever capture Chrome OS? Definitely not. But that's okay. Listen, they can become number 2, even though it's a very close number 2. That's something. Considering where IE was years ago and how bad everybody hated it, I think this is they've done an amazing turnaround for this stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
I was just thinking like I do like the new Edge, but it is because I think about how they viewed Windows Phone and how they were a comfortable third place and they didn't want to be there. It's fighting for like a second place spot because they are, as you mentioned, Safari and Firefox are also basically second place. They're fighting for second place at this point, and it does appear that they are going to pull ahead. Is second place enough for them, even at like 11% market share? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think it is because this is all an extension of Bing when you think about it. And again, people were ripping on Bing years ago, but it's actually paid off because not so much for. They are slowly getting market share from Google in that regard. It's Google's public reputation is, I would say, going down the tubes slightly. Microsoft's is not. And so you have a lot of people, kind of doing that, looking at it that way. But Bing is also super important because it's, and we did an article about this like a week ago with a developer who chimed in about how much he prefers Bing as a developer because it surfaces information. Like if you do a search on Bing, the little cards that come up now, if you search for a famous person, it gives you this sort of summary it gives you their photo, a little summary, and you can read on it. And it has like these, a Wikipedia link, an IMDb link, and like the little icons. And you can click on those to go deeper. It's really like well done surfacing of information. And they're doing stuff with like LinkedIn and the information there. this is part of a broader strategy for them for use of all of their products and AI, machine learning, and it's why they keep it around. And Edge is just a further extension of that. Then there's the shopping stuff, which they imagine get a cut of, and is part of commerce, but it also saves people money, like when you can get a coupon on something you're buying, and so they're smart in the sense they know that what do most people use a desktop browser for these days? It's going to be Gmail for a lot of people, following up news, Facebook, doing research. How many of us use, myself, Zach and I, I always tell how many tabs I have open. It's a ton, which is why they have the group tabs feature now, which is amazing. And so people use it for that. They're also using it for shopping, right? Shopping is one of the biggest things. Yeah, you can buy something on your phone if you absolutely know what you want. And if you're like me, you may see something in the store, you see something on TV, you go to it on your phone, you're like, cool. You come home then, and then you want to open up that browser, and then you want to do the research. What did the reviews say? What are the YouTube videos? What's this? What are the pros and cons? I want to read what customer reviews said. And for that, you're going to want to be behind a big screen. You're going to want a bunch of tabs open. You're going to be comparing shopping and prices. Are there any alternatives? That deeper kind of work is what you're going to be doing on your desktop browser. And that's exactly what Edge has been focusing on. It's like, oh, people do a lot of shopping with this. Let's make this all around shopping then. And it's all optional opt-in, so I think that's fine. But I think they've been smart about how they're positioning this stuff, and doing a really good job.
Yeah.
So.
Should we talk about dual booting phones, Daniel?
I suppose we can. And we're running a little late on the podcast. We'll see. We could be able to squeeze this all in, I believe. So the concept of a dual boot phone. Here's why you don't have dual boot phones. For one, only nerds care about this stuff, right? The mainstream consumers absolutely do not care. But say I was wrong in that. The other issue is simply licensing. Google doesn't want dual boot phones. Microsoft doesn't want dual boot phones. You can go on to Windows Central and type in dual boot. You'll come up with articles. I believe it was Huawei years ago was going to do a dual boot phone. They publicly announced they were going to do one. It was going to run Windows Phone and it was going to run Android, and you could switch between them. There have been attempts at this before, and they always run into legal roadblocks because it is against the OEM licenses to basically create this kind of device. And so that's one reason why you'll never see it. Now, could you create a device that allows the user to install dual boot? Yeah, possibly, right? So Sean Endicott wrote this article because with the new Pixel 6 and Android 13, you can evidently run Windows 11 as an emulator through it, which is pretty cool. We don't know if that feature is going to ship with Android, right? We just know it's there. I guess some form of it has always kind of existed, but this has been a little bit more refined. So would you want to run Windows 11 on a phone? Absolutely not. And if you are saying you want to, you're wrong. And it's the reason why the idea of like Windows 11, even on the Surface Duo, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Again, you think you want this. Try Windows 11 on a small screen device. I have a couple of them. It looks cool. You're like, oh my God, it's full Windows 11. And then you start using it. You realize this works much better with a mouse and keyboard. And if I had a magnifying glass, you're not gonna run the apps you want to use mobilely on this device. You're not gonna be like, oh, thank God, now I'm on the subway. I can launch Photoshop on a little 7-inch screen and edit my photos. Oh, I'm gonna run Premiere and run my 4K videos and edit. You're not doing that, right? So this idea of having full-blown Windows 11 on your smartphone is just stupid. I'm glad people try it. It's fun to do as a science project. It's not a viable option. Even if they improve the screen resolutions and the aspect and all that kind of stuff, it's not gonna change the fact that it's a desktop operating system. But Sean wrote this article and he was smart. He knew about that. He's like, that is true, and that's not something you want. But he makes a good point. It would be cool to have Windows 11 as a dual boot feature, only so you can then plug it in to an external display, a mouse and keyboard, and then use it as basically a Windows on ARM device as like a desktop PC. Obviously, this calls back Continuum, which, again, I love Continuum. We've done a lot of coverage of it. I used to run it. It's amazing. Also, really, no one used it. times have changed, obviously, and he was making the point that today's processors, like even a new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that Zach was just talking about, is way faster or significantly faster than the current Pro X with SQ2. Now, SQ3, I think, is going to be even faster than the Gen 1. I've already seen some stuff with the new Gen 3 ACX that's coming out. It's a massive jump in performance, right? It's going to be a big deal. But you're already kind of getting, and so this is where that argument starts to fall apart a little, because you're going to start to see the ARM PC chips actually start to really, really kind of crush what you can get in a phone. That said, you can absolutely run Windows 11 on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and have a pretty solid experience, right? I use the Pro X Gen 2 right now, and I enjoy it, right? So I do agree this is kind of an interesting idea. I still think it's super niche. I don't think there's a ton of people who just have an external display, mouse, and keyboard laying around without a PC that they would want to use this with. I'm sure some people will, but usually if you have a display, a desktop display, keyboard, and mouse, you probably have a desktop computer.
Yeah.
Like, that's just usually how those things go. In which case, it's always going to be faster and more powerful than whatever your phone is. And so when people sit down on a desktop, there are sort of different expectations, I think, versus being mobile. So the performance difference with the Surface Pro X, I may be able to put off that difference because I'm mobile. But when I'm at home and I'm using my 12th gen Core i9 with a 3080 GPU, like, why would I want to use my Pro X docked, right? I don't know, Zach, what do you think about this and possibly, more specifically, obviously, a Surface Duo 3? Because Microsoft could absolutely do this then for Surface Duo 3.
I do not think that they will do this for Surface Duo 3. I think the thing you point out about how for that feature to really work, it really needs an ecosystem to function correctly. You would need to have a docking station at work and a docking station at home. To really sort of
when you travel,
exactly, yeah, to take advantage of it. And because people don't, they just have a PC or a laptop, it just makes more sense to use that. While it could work in a pinch in certain scenarios, like if you're in a hotel room and you want to connect wirelessly, if it could work wirelessly, projecting to a TV or a monitor,
right,
and using the Duo can sort of sit as a sort of laptop shape. Mini laptop, and then you can sort of control the keyboard and trackpad from there while looking at the monitor wirelessly. That could be an idea, but yeah, it would be cool to have a feature where the Duo it runs Android, and then if you wanted to use this continuum mode, it would load up a Windows 11 VM, and then it would project that to an external monitor, so you could have your Windows apps, and again, it would be on ARM, so limitations apply where necessary. But for the most part, you could do that and be productive with that if you wanted to. But otherwise, that sort of VM is off when you're not connected to an external monitor. That could be an interesting idea, but I don't think there's something they're going to pursue. I just think the ideal continuum or DeX or whatever they want to call it these days is a niche sort of enthusiast sort of thing and isn't going to take off mainstream.
Same thing with, you have those dummy laptops now.
Yeah.
That you could just connect your phone up to and use Android that way. Razer experimented with this concept years ago. You drop the phone in.
That was a cool idea.
And it would actually, it would turn into the mouse pad.
Yeah.
So the problem with these concepts, of course, is that you're now sacrificing your phone to be used as your computer. And a lot of people use their phone in addition to their computer. So, I mean, who doesn't, right? You're in front of your computer. You still have your phone for notifications, and you want to use that. And you're sacrificing it. Now, we've had stuff like this previously. Let me refresh everyone's memory. Years ago, Windows 10 went through a phase using PC sticks.
Yes.
I had a few of them, the Lenovo ones and stuff like that. And some of them had a little fan in them and stuff. And they were just if you don't remember, they looked like little Chromecast sticks with an HDMI plug. You plug them into your TV, and then with Bluetooth, you can connect up a keyboard and mouse to it. And you had full-on Windows. And it was just like putting the same experience of putting Windows on a small screen device. You're like, wow, neat, that's so cool. You almost never use it. Like when I travel, am I going to take like a wireless keyboard and mouse with me? Maybe, and plus a lot of hotel TVs They don't give you access to the HDMI, or it's like really you have to like really reach behind because it's mounted on the wall. Like can you do it? All this kind of stuff. But there's a reason why PC sticks aren't around today. Like I don't think I've seen any new PC sticks in like 2 or 3 years. I don't think there's any Windows 11 ones even. And there's a reason for that. It's just they just didn't catch on, despite the idea of being really cool. Like, oh, I could just put Windows 11 on my TV in my living room. Like part of me, that sounds great. I can just do work out there or something, but it doesn't work like that. And so, yeah, I agree with Zach. I think conceptually it's a neat idea, but when you travel, you're going to carry an external display, even a new portable displays, right? I mean, we do have these new portable displays, which are nice. You're going to carry a portable display, a keyboard and mouse, and your phone, and I presume a laptop. Because when you're traveling, you want the laptop because you can use it at the airport, you can use it on the airplane, you can use it at the cafe, you can use it in the different spots. So you're going to carry all that with you. Why? Why would you do that? Especially then you might set it up in your hotel room. So you got your nice 14-inch portable display, a full keyboard, a full mouse, and you're running, an ARM processor, an old ARM processor, again, versus whatever your laptop is. Your laptop is probably going to be more powerful, better GPU. I don't know. It just seems like this is the thing where people really sound like they want it, and they really don't. And I don't think the market absolutely wants this stuff. But I think there's room here for Microsoft to do stuff with the Duo in terms of what you're alluding to, which is projection using some sort of Chromecast feature to larger displays. Like there's stuff that can be done there that's a little bit more pragmatic. That's not as as crazy as running full Windows 11 on the device.
Yeah, I definitely think if they were to explore sort of projecting things, it would still be with Android, just a feature within apps or something like that. But I don't think we're going to see Windows VMs running on Android devices that project to larger displays anytime soon.
Yep. So let's stick a fork in that idea. Although I'm happy that developers are continuing to experiment with this stuff. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to Thing of the Week as we wrap up the podcast. Zach, you have a Thing of the Week for us?
I don't think I do. I don't think I've watched anything this week, unfortunately.
That's all there is to life anymore, just watching TV. Well, I'll go then, and if you can think of something in the meantime. So I've been going through headphones, specifically earbuds lately. So I use the Bose Free Sport. Oh, their names are. I think it's called the Bose Free Sports. I bought them in 2019, and they were great. So the Bose, they're a little goofy looking, of course, and I use these at the gym. That's why they're the Free Sports, and they've been very good. But 2019, 2022, and I use them a lot. The battery life is just not holding up. I get less than 2 hours with them now. And so I don't even know if Bose would service them. I didn't even look into that. But Bose has a new version out called the Bose Sport Earbuds True Wireless. Okay. But I was like, what else is out there? Because I want to see. So the other one I want to try were the Jabra Elite 7 Actives. And I just was super interesting. First of all, I want to shout out to Best Buy. I've been doing this all through Best Buy, and awesome service. I had a 30-day return window with the headphones. And I think it's because I'm a member, and when you level up or something like that, they give you that. But that's a long time to try out headphones. And I was able to return them, no problem. Just went in, dropped them off. They instantly refunded me. I was like, damn, that's cool. So the Jabra Elite 7s, I just want to point out, these are tiny little earbuds. They're super small. They go into the ear canal. They have so many features. Like it has active noise cancellation. It has the feature where like Samsung did where it gives you basically a hearing test. And so like you put in your age, and then it gives you like the tone test. And when you hear it, you hit a button, and when you don't, you don't hit the button. And then it customizes the sound profile for your age and / hearing ability, which is again super clever. They were comfortable, a very good battery life. The case is tiny, and it has Qi Wireless built in. I think you can get something like 28 hours of battery life in total, right? So continue, but I think it's like 8 hours per charge or something like that for the earbuds. The sound profile is pretty good with them. So, and they're the same price. They're $179 versus the Bose. So on paper, and I'm going to tell you, most people will be fine with the Jabra Elite 7 for the gym, or exercising, whatever you do. I think I can easily recommend them for that just because of all the features. Meanwhile, the Bose, no active noise cancellation. They don't go into your ear canal. They actually kind of sit on the outside, but they also have an ear hook for your inner ear. They don't have like half the features that the Jabra has. There's no Qi wireless. They're larger. They have worse battery life. They don't. The case doesn't recharge as much. There's just not a lot there. That said, I'm keeping the Bose, which is really counterintuitive. The reason is the Bose to me are just much more comfortable. I don't really like things that jam into my ear canal. I get ear canal fatigue after a while. I also have this issue where because I lift weights at the gym, I make that weight face when you're really like, lifting a lot of weight. And the Jabbers would almost squeeze out of my ear. Like, and when you're like rep 7 of like, and you're really pushing and you feel like your headphone is about to pop out of your ear and land on the floor, that really crushes your concentration because they're little black things. And I know if that rolled on the black floor, I'm just going to be like, oh God, where'd it go?
Yeah.
And it really broke my concentration. So even though the Bose don't have active noise cancellation, they're a little bit larger. They were more comfortable. I also think the Bose had a better sound profile. I'm glad Bose finally introduced an equalizer, but this is very Apple, by the way, Zach. You'd appreciate this. For years, Bose headphones don't give you an EQ and no presets.
Wow.
It's literally like, this is the Bose sound. Enjoy it. That's all you get. They finally gave you like a three-tier equalizer, bass, mids, and highs, which is fine. It's good enough. But it's true. I think the Bose has a better sound profile. So because of that they feel better because they have the ear hooks that hook onto the inner ears. They don't go into my ear canals, and the sound to me is better. I'm sticking with the Bose. I would have liked active noise cancellation. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was an amazing feature. But for me, these are better. So, but if you don't do like heavy weights and, I think the Jabras are really impressive too. I'm also going to say, and I'll talk about this next week because they're about to arrive today. I did order the Sony Link Buds, which that was in the news this week. Those were announced and reviews came out for them. These are super interesting. If you're into the Surface earbuds, we've talked about previously this idea of wearable technology. These are headphones you're supposed to basically put in and leave in for like all day. They actually have a cutout for the ear canal to let sound in. So it looks like a little Cheerio where that goes over your ear canal. But there's also a headphone there, and it like the rest of the battery and stuff like that is up higher. And they're supposed to be very comfortable. They don't go into the ear canal, thankfully. So like Surface earbuds, they sit in the external part. But the concept here is that you wear these all day in your office or whatever. You can listen to music, you can listen to podcasts, you can be on your Skype call or Slack, and you're going to hear them. And I guess there's like an auto adjust based on the ambient noise and all this kind of stuff. But then someone comes into the room and starts talking to you, you're totally in that moment and can hear them without either popping off the headphones or doing something else. So those are the Sony Link Buds, Link Bud being one word. I'm going to try them out, listening to, well, actually, I won't be here next Friday. So 2 Fridays from now, you can tune in and I'll talk about my experience. I'll also talk about them on Twitter, of course, as well. But I think it's a really interesting concept for those of you who want to wear headphones all the time, but you jump between your work and personal life and don't want to keep removing headphones and popping them in and out. Or I'm not a big fan of this, the passive modes on active noise cancellation headphones where it amplifies the noise in the room. It's a neat trick if you want to spy on people, but I think it just sounds terrible on most of them. And it doesn't like you have to go manually switch your phone when someone's talking to you, or you got to pop out the headphone. It just, I don't like that. So I'm really curious about these, whether or not I'm going to like them or not. And will they replace the Surface earbuds, right? Because Surface earbuds have a similar concept. I don't know. We'll see. So, and yeah, Best Buy. I just want to say I'm impressed with Best Buy because Amazon has been so crushing it in terms of crushing retailers. Best Buy was in that spot for a few years where they were kind of getting their butts kicked by Amazon. I think they did a really amazing job of turning their business around. I love the idea of I can just go online, order it, go to the store, pick it up, just walk in, grab it. I get 30 days. I can easily return things. I ordered the Link Buds yesterday. They were going to ship them. They're like, all right, they'll be due Monday, or you can do overnight for $20. I'm like, oh, well, it's fine. I'll wait till Monday. Lame. Guess what? They're showing up today. I was like, that's awesome, right? So I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with how companies can kind of reposition themselves in spite of Amazon. Of course, that said, if you're a local company, well, you're still screwed because Best Buy is still a monster. But there you go. Zach, have you thought of anything?
No.
All right. Well, you can have next week then to catch up on stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of TV stuff we should do. Dan, you should try the Bose Quiet Comfort. Yeah, I have the Quiet Comfort. I have the QC 235s still. I don't really need any other earbuds. I got a ton of earbuds, some from Review. I have the Razer ones and all that kind of stuff. So, but we'll see what happens. All right, that wraps it up for this podcast. Yeah, so I won't be here next week as I have to do another travel to New York City for today. Zach will decide, I guess. We'll have a guest.
We'll see how next week goes, because if there's no news next week, then there will be no need to do a show. But if there is big news, then I'll figure out a guest, or we'll do a solo show or something or other.
There you go. So follow me at Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, RUBINO. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. And of course, we're on our YouTube channel, Windows Central, where you can go and watch the podcast live or recorded. We do record this every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. That is shifted. And we do that live there. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wow, for a week that we were struggling to find stories for.
Yeah, you spent 30 minutes on just Windows 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm doing you a favor, Zach, that a complaint I've seen from people, and I kind of agree with, we should start doing timestamps at the end of these podcasts.
For the video, yeah. I just need to remember to stamp them as we go, because otherwise it's a nightmare trying to find, especially with all the different topics.
So the good news is for this podcast, I don't know when we start talking about the Windows 11 stuff, but I do have every other segment.
Okay, brilliant. If you could forward that to me, that'd be awesome. I'll definitely add those. Yeah, I have been wanting to start doing that. I have seen those comments.
Yep.
So yeah, well, that's something we're going to work on adding to the show notes. Have you thought of bringing the old intro chime into the modern intro? I really liked that chime. What chime?
Oh, for the original podcast, it was like.
I don't remember.
You can go watch our old podcast. It's always, if you look in the recommended below, like I see WP Central podcast 167.
Oh yeah, from like 12 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago. Yeah, that's with Jay Bennett, who was our app developer. I miss Jay. Good. One of my other 9,000 British friends I've made throughout this history. For some reason, I know a lot of British people. Yeah, I can go look at myself. And we used to do those on Google Hangout. Oh, and I had Sam Sabry on that one too. Wow. Old Sam, another good friend. Well, I look so young. Look at me. I'm adorable. That's from 2014.
Given that Microsoft will reopen their Washington state campuses on February 28th, are we going to see a return to in-person events full-time anytime soon? I know Inspire will be virtual. Yeah, I don't expect any events to be in-person until at least the fall. Like, maybe Ignite could be a possible sort of hybrid event, but I'm not holding my breath. I think this year is probably a write-off for in-person events. They might do an in-person hardware event, because that's a much smaller thing. And, but regarding conferences, I think Ignite is a possibility in sort of September, November timeframe, whenever they want to do it. But otherwise, no, I'm not expecting Build. I'm not expecting Inspire. And yeah.
Daniel, I meant the Quiet Comfort earbuds with ANC. I mean, if someone gave them to me, I'm sure that'd be great. I don't need. I don't know. I don't think I want what the Sony's doing with the Link Buds. I think that idea is like really jives with my concept of how this technology should work. I really don't want ANC for regular earbuds. And because I don't need them in the other. I don't want to have 3 headphones, basically. I don't want headphones for work and life, then headphones with ANC for other times, and then over-the-ear travel headphones. It gets to be a bit much. I can maybe do it 2. I'm sure the Bose earbuds are great with ANC. I'm just saying they wouldn't work for me at the gym. I don't think, because you get into the water resistance and all that kind of stuff, which the sport ones tend to feature. So it also says, no, I meant the 2015 normal Windows Central videos, not the podcasts. I forgot even what that was like, but I don't know. I guess we could look into it. Sure.
Surface Laptop Studio available 22nd of Feb outside the US and some countries. Do you still believe it is a good buy compared to the upcoming devices with 12th Gen 1280p? I am a bit disappointed with the current 11370H. That's a Dan question, really.
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna. I think the P series it'll be interesting. I am curious. I can't tell you the P is gonna be better than the H, but what you're really getting, it's kind of a moot point because you're getting the GPU with the laptop studio,
right?
And that kind of is what makes it up. You're not going to see a ton of RTX GPUs with the P series. There may be, but you're usually going to get the H series with the GPU. In which case, that H series is going to be powerful. This is the problem with technology, though. You're always a little bit of a generation behind. But you're buying. Listen, Zach and I both use Laptop Studio quite a bit. I use it almost every night. It's a great laptop, not because the performance, which is very good. It's just the design of it is really nice. And you really should be thinking less about the CPU and more about the functionality of what Laptop Studio does.
Right.
If you're not bringing that screen forward, if you're not laying it down to use it as a drawing tablet, and you don't plan on using the pen a lot, I don't even know why you're looking at Laptop Studio. Granted, it's a great, Zach and I don't use those features, but I didn't pay for my Laptop Studio. It's still the review unit, right? And I love using it as just a normal laptop. You can absolutely do that, but you're not going to get the latest and greatest processor. You're not going to get all the latest and greatest features in a laptop. So you really need to just think of it that way.
Zach, have you got your Xbox mini fridge? Yes, it's literally right there. I can't move it because it's all plugged in and stuff, but it's there. Actually, maybe I can. Can I move my camera? Am I going to reveal my mess? That's fine. Let's see. There it is. I've got shipping labels on top of it. Let's move those. There we are. There it is. It's really cool. You can actually control, turn the light on and off and stuff, which is really cool. And there's a light up here as well, though that's a lot harder to see. Yeah, you can't see it.
Wow.
My cable's not long enough, but yeah, it's massive as well. It's really big.
As much as I kind of want one, I'm also kind of glad I didn't order one.
It's loud. It's a loud fridge. Luckily you can turn it off and still keep the light on and stuff. So I'm basically using it as a cupboard rather than a fridge.
That's funny. Now that Google is making Chrome OS, we didn't talk about this. We should have. It's making Chrome OS available for every PC. Do you think Microsoft will make Windows 11 SE more available and position it for weaker PCs? So to refresh, we should have talked about that on the podcast. Google introduced a new thing. I forgot what it's called. Basically, they're going to allow you to install Chrome OS on any laptop. It doesn't even have to be an older laptop, but the concept is for older laptops. Basically, you have an old PC that's sitting around not doing anything. You don't really want to run full Windows on it. You can put Chrome OS, this version of Chrome OS on it. There's still a lot of limitations and caveats right now. For instance, it doesn't have Google Play apps, Android apps. It doesn't have a lot of that stuff on there that, it's basically the web browser, right? And that browser experience. That will probably change as the product evolves, but that's it right now. It's also hit and miss on devices that it supports, whether there are issues or not. Very few devices just run it kind of no problem. I will say, though, it's a very interesting concept. It gets companies to sort of recycle older hardware, which I think is important. And it gets people to rethink their current PC. You throw Chrome OS on it. Maybe you like it. Maybe now you go and buy Chrome OS for your next device. That leads to Windows 11 SE. Will Microsoft do the same? I don't believe so, but they may be considering it. Windows 11e is still a lot more lot less cloud-based than Chrome OS is. There is a local component to it, but it's also true that it's more cloud-based than any other version of Windows. But the problem with SE right now is as it's configured and set up, it's meant to be deployed by IT and administered that way. I think once you start undoing some of that stuff, it just becomes Windows 11. So I'm not really sure what the differences would be between the two. But it's an interesting point. Like, I'm wondering how Microsoft is thinking about this going forward, if they have an answer or a plan. So I don't really know.
On Duo 2, is there a way to add a second user profile that can log into the phone? I can on my old Amazon Fire tablet. Android does support that, but the Duo has it disabled, so no, you can't do that.
Really? Didn't know that.
I believe it's disabled.
Why would they disable it?
I don't know. Give me 1 second to just double check that is in fact disabled. Where would I go to set that up? Because usually there's a users option.
Accounts? Or
other users? No, yeah. See, like, the option for it just doesn't work. Yeah, it's definitely disabled on the Duo 2. Yeah, I think it's disabled on the Duo. Don't know why they've done that, but yeah, it can't do it. Maybe there's an ADB command that re-enables it. I don't know. I have the US version and it is loud. I understand the Europe version has at least an eco mode that helps with the noise. Does the US version not have an eco mode? That's really weird. Yeah, the one in the UK here it's like a dialer on the back. You can have max or eco. Eco's still a bit loud.
US version runs on oil.
Is there any news about the future of the Cortana app for PC? There is not. So I have no updates about that app. Did you answer that Ryzen question?
I did not.
Since Ryzen's Mobile 6000 series has awesome IPC/Watts efficiency, great battery life, and 2x IGP performance increase, do you think Surface Laptop 5 or Surface Pro 8 will use that chip? The Laptop 5 will almost certainly use that Mobile 6000. Pro 8, unlikely.
Doubt it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Any more questions? Now is the time to ask, or otherwise we will head off for the weekend.
If you look at the HP EliteBook 840 G5 review and skip to 23 seconds, you can see what intro chime is talking about. Okay. You seem really obsessed with this intro chime. I'll take a look at it. It's not a priority for us, though, especially since I don't really do video laptop reviews anymore.
Razer chair, how do you like it, and which one is it?
Oh, this is the Isker. Oh, which one? I have two. There's the Isker, and then there's this newer one. I always forget their names because they have such wacky names. Yeah, the Isker is a $500 game chair. The Isker is really cool because the Isker has the back pop out. It's a lumbar support, and it's like this physical thing that comes out and supports your back, and it's supposed to be the more dedicated gaming chair. Then they came out with a new version, which is the one that's behind me. Oh, it's a different version. It's called the Razer Enki, Enki, and this one is it's a cheaper one. It's only $300, the Enki X at least. And it's less for gamers, more for just your office chair. You're going to use it all day. The difference is, like the Isker, like I said, for gaming, it's a little bit more narrow. It's more, jet fighter cockpit. Where the Enki has a much wider base to it, and the main cushion is a different type of material. And they worked with pilots and companies that make airplane seats for like airline, not jet fighters. It's the most comfortable seat I've ever had. What I mean by that is when you're sitting down for hours in it, you don't get pressure and pain points in your butt and your legs, like even gaming chairs would be. Like I can literally sit in this thing forever. I don't get any fatigue for it. So if you want just like a regular, really good office chair that looks kind of cool, the Razer Anki or Anki X is, yeah, highly recommended. And I do have the reviews up for both of those on Windows Central. In fact, I'll drop the Anki X into the chat here and that has the link to the Isker one if you're interested. No, so Anki is more comfortable. Isker is comfortable. I love the back for me, and I put this in review. If they could take the lumbar back support from Isker and put it into Anki, it would be the ultimate chair. But for day-to-day stuff, I actually do prefer the Anki. Oh, hey, Muhammad, tell us 5 more times. Did you have a seizure? Like, what's going on? Why are you hitting the button? Oh, Muhammad.
Have you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Has it been confirmed that HoloLens 3 is dead, or are they changing the direction of it and the original device was cancelled? I mean, nothing's been confirmed. Microsoft won't confirm anything. Only all rumors at this point. But the report did say that Microsoft was not currently working on any sort of Windows-based headset device. They will say HoloLens 3 was that, and there is no plan B. There's no additional device they're working on. They did mention there was some sort of edge computing concept idea, but they didn't mention what OS it runs. It probably doesn't run Windows, or if it does, it streams Windows or something. Who knows? But the focus does appear to be all on this Samsung partnership, which will be a Samsung device, I imagine, using Microsoft technology, but powered by Android. So who knows?
T.I. Roney, that question regarding Windows 11 and Microsoft account, we literally have a whole segment on it. If you go to the beginning of the podcast, at some point between 00 and 33 minutes, we do talk extensively about that topic. So, yeah, Catherine, I believe Razer names all their stuff after. I forgot where these are. I think these are like gods or something like that. Their keyboards are all named after snakes. I think their mice were named after spiders. They have a lot of wacky names and makes it very hard to keep track of things. Zach, do you think there will be third-party widgets for Windows 11?
I believe that is the plan. Microsoft told press that would be the case at some point.
Yeah.
I heard that would show up at some point this year. Maybe that'd be a build announcement. But yeah, not sure when. I mean, I do know that that is supposed to be a thing, but I don't know when that will show up. Right, final call for questions. Get them in now, and then it's time for us to say goodbye. So make it quick.
Yeah, we don't have the clock behind you anymore. Is it because you're sitting?
I lowered my desk.
Got it.
It's still there.
Zach got tired. His legs gave out.
Yeah. It's been a windy day. I had to go to the shop earlier. I nearly died.
Yeah, I told you you're getting our wind because we've had that for the last 2 days.
Yeah. Windy.
Luckily, didn't lose power.
No, we've still got power, luckily.
What happened to the full screen widgets? Yeah, it's a good question.
Good question. I have no idea. That was in their sort of unveiling video, wasn't it? But
yep,
nowhere to be seen yet.
My guess is I would pay attention to the dev channel. I mean, it'll show up there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see it show up in a couple weeks or something like that. If they're still planning on bringing it, we don't know what their plans are. You would think they would. I mean, my bet is they do bring that, but that may be going along with some of these other gesture overhauls that they're doing.
Right, and with that, I think it's time to head off. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back maybe next Friday, if not next Friday, the week after. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time.